Howdy Hearthstoners, I'm Doc Awesome, and today we rolled a Paladin quest, so I'm going to show you my Paladin deck. This is a deck I called the Token Knight. The basic strategy of this deck is that you keep summoning lots of low attack minions in great numbers so that you can eventually overwhelm your opponent. We also have a lot of buff cards in here because it's very likely that we're going to get at least one minion to stick on the board, and then we can buff it and just go for a lot of face damage. The MVP of this deck is the Hobgoblin. It's a 3-cost minion, has 2 attack, 3 health, so not really a great minion, but the text says whenever you play a 1-attack minion, give it +2/+2. Pretty much every other minion in this deck is 1 attack, other than, say, the Knife Juggler or the Quartermaster or the Stormwind Champion. So if we manage to keep a Hobgoblin on the board for more than one turn, we're going to get a lot of value out of it. The key to this deck is trying to save up a lot of 1-attack minions so that you can just dump your hand after you play a Hobgoblin. Having one creature buffed to the extreme is usually just a big silence target. The benefit of the Hobgoblin is that you will usually have many minions on the board with this buff. So even if your opponent silences one, he can't silence them all. And eventually they begin to add up. We have 2 Wisps in here. These are 0-cost minions, but they have the 1 attack, so they get the buff from the Hobgoblin. These are basically here so that if on turn 3 you're able to play a Hobgoblin, maybe you can play these 2 as well, and boom. On turn 3, you've got a 2/3 minion as well as 2 3/3s. That's a pretty good opening. We also have 2 Argent Squires. It's just a 1-attack minion with a Divine Shield, but if it gets the Hobgoblin buff, it can become a serious threat. We also have 1 Equality. When all of your minions have 1 attack, Equality can be a real big game saver. It makes it very easy for you to clear a board with all of your wimpy minions, just in case you don't get any of the buffs. We have 2 Annoyotrons. One of the better taunts in the game becomes even better if it gets buffed by the Hobgoblin. 2 Haunted Creepers, same story as the Annoyotron, plus these leave behind something when they die. Actually, they leave behind 2 somethings. So playing Haunted Creeper early is going to help us keep control of the board. We have an Ironbeak Owl to help us silence probably a big taunt. You'll most likely end up using this Ironbeak Owl to get through a Sludge Belcher or something like that. We also have 2 Knife Jugglers. These are 2 of the other minions that don't have 1 attack. The reason they're here is because most of our minions are really cheap, and thus we will get a lot of extra knives, a lot of extra damage out of the Knife Jugglers, especially if we can combo it with Muster for Battle. We have 1 Master Swordsmith. In general, this card is a noob trap. You think it's going to buff all your minions, but it only has 3 health. So unless you can keep it alive for a couple of turns, you're not really going to get much than a 1-attack buff. But thanks to the Hobgoblin and the Sword of Justice, it's very likely that the Master Swordsmith will stick around for more than 1 turn. The key with this card is you want to play the Swordsmith alongside something else that is a bigger threat. So your opponent will have to focus on removing that other thing and ignore the Swordsmith. We also have 1 Novice Engineer. This is mostly here to help us draw a card, but it does have 1 attack, so if we play it with the Hobgoblin, so much the better. We have 1 Sword of Justice. This weapon is another key card to this deck. As long as you have it equipped, every minion you summon gets a +1/+1 buff. That applies to the Silverhand recruits you summon from your hero power, as well as any other minion you play from your hand and the minions they might summon. A really great combo is to have the Sword of Justice out right before you summon the Imp Master. Not only will the Imp Master get the buff, but every imp it summons will get a buff as well. Added to that, the Sword of Justice is also a weapon, so you can use it to hit something for 1 if things are looking just that bad. But ideally, you want to save the Sword of Justice to buff 5 minions. We have 2 Muster for Battle. This is a great Paladin card overall. It's even better in this deck. which is focused on just keeping the board flooded with stuff. Muster for Battle definitely goes a long way towards that. It combos great with the Sword of Justice and the Knife Juggler. You play a Muster for Battle after a Knife Juggler and you get 3 free damage. That's a bargain. In addition, you also get a weapon, the Light's Justice, which you can use to ping things for 1. And we also have a Quartermaster in here to buff all of our Silverhand recruits. Muster for Battle synergizes with almost every other card we have in this game. It's a pretty good get. You definitely cannot build this Token Knight deck without 2 Muster for Battles. So if you want to build this deck, save your dust for that. We also have 1 Acolyte of Pain. It's mostly there to help us draw cards, but again, it has the 1 attack, so it can get buffed by the Hobgoblin. It's even better if it gets buffed by the Sword of Justice. It'll help you draw a lot of extra cards. We also have the 1 Imp Master. This is here to help us keep the board just full of stuff. It's a minion that keeps summoning other minions as long as it's on the board. If you don't have a Muster for Battle in your opening hand, Imp Master is the next best thing. We have 1 True Silver Champion because, frankly, it's one of the best weapons in the game. You get to hit something for 4, 2 times, and it heals you. That's value in a weapon. Honestly, if I could find a way to fit in a 2nd True Silver Champion, I would, but the card tends to be too slow. Also, it's very likely that you will have either a Sword of Justice or a Light's Justice from the Muster for Battle, and it really sucks when you have to override a weapon with another better weapon. You really want to get all of the swings out of each weapon you get. 4 weapons is about the largest number you want. We have 2 Blessing of Kings. Since this deck generates lots of tokens and will often have lots of small wimpy creatures out on the board, Blessing of Kings is a must. You give a minion +4/+4, suddenly it becomes a late game minion that is worthy of serious attention by your opponent. We have 1 Consecration. Obviously this combos well with Equality. You reduce everything's health to 1, and then you do deal damage, and then you deal 2 damage to everything. What's not to love? 6 mana, clear the board. That's even cheaper than a mage. Even if you don't have Equality, Consecration can sometimes help you clean up the board, or at least whittle down a lot of big things so that you can kill them with all of your little dudes. We also have 1 Defender of Argus. This guy is our big taunt giver. We'll use it to protect the board if we have one worth protecting. Basically, you throw this guy down to keep your opponent from going to your face. We're usually not going to have a minion with lots of health to make a serious taunt, but he'll at least give 2 creatures taunt so that your opponent will have to waste at least 2 attacks getting through them. This is a good time-buying card. If you need 1 more turn to kill your opponent, Defender of Argus is what you need. We also have Jeeves. Not only does he have the 1 attack to get the Hobgoblin buff, but he draws us cards. And since so many of our cards are very cheap and will probably be played en masse behind the Hobgoblin or the Sword of Justice, our hand is going to be empty quite frequently. Jeeves is there to help us refill it. Keep in mind that Jeeves can be a double-edged sword, because if you're playing against a Zulok, it's not going to be hard for them to empty their hand and draw cards off of Jeeves as well. We have 1 Quartermaster. If you're going to run 2 Muster for Battles, you're going to want to run at least 1 Quartermaster. Honestly, if I had a 2nd Quartermaster, I would probably put it in this deck. That's how you get the most value out of your Muster for Battle. Even better is when you play Muster for Battle after a Sword of Justice, so all of your Silverhand recruits get a buff from the Sword of Justice, then you buff them again with the Quartermaster. Since there's usually at least 3 Silverhand recruits on the board when you use Muster for Battle, your opponent will be forced to use either a Flame Strike. Actually, only Flame Strike will deal with it. Even Silence doesn't take care of it, since you have 3 different minions getting the buff. So Quartermaster is OP in the Paladin deck. We have a Stormwind Champion. Because we're going to be summoning so many tokens, it's very likely that we'll always have at least 1 or 2 minions on the board. Stormwind Champion turns those minions into a serious threat. All of our 1/1s become 2/2s. Not a bad way to spend 7 mana. And finally, the ultimate card that benefits from this deck. Since we're always going to be flooding the board with tons of tokens, and the Sea Giant costs less depending on how many minions are on the board, it's very likely that you are going to be able to cast this 10 mana giant for around 4, 3, or even free. Sea Giant is our big swing card in this deck. Getting him down early is how we win the game. Even if your opponent can deal with the Sea Giant, you can just keep overwhelming them with tons and tons of stuff, and it'll be very hard for them to come back. If you can establish board control early with the Token Knight, it will be very hard for your opponent to answer. Alright, well that's the Token Knight. Let's see if it can earn us some gold. Alright, our first worthy opponent is a mage. With the very nice custom Medivh portrait. Wow, this is actually a pretty good hand. Argent Squire, Haunted Creeper. We're going to toss back Consecration just because we probably won't need it before turn 4. You always want to keep 1 Hobgoblin in your opening hand, just in case. Because the game's going to treat you really rough if you don't get a Hobgoblin in the early game. It's going to be really hard to answer your enemy's mid-game aggression without one. Alright, since our opponent didn't have a 1-drop, we're going to go ahead and take it slow. The more minions we can save to play with the Hobgoblin, so much the better. Ideally, we'll get to play Hobgoblin on turn 3, then coin out an Argent Squire. But since our opponent is already playing a Mad Scientist, we may not get that chance. So here I think we go ahead and play the Haunted Creeper. Even if the Mad Scientist trades with the Creeper, we'll still have minions left on the board. Depending on what else he plays to back up the Scientist, we'll either play the Hobgoblin and coin an Argent Squire, or we might just put a Blessing of Kings on one of the spiders left over. It all really depends on whether or not he decides to trade the Mad Scientist. Dang. Flamewaker is serious trouble from a mage. If you see one of these on the board, you need to kill it as fast as possible. Unfortunately, it looks like I'm not going to be able to do that this turn. Well, maybe I could. I could coin out a Blessing of Kings. That would buff this up to 6 health, 5 attack. Actually, that doesn't seem so bad. Because the Flamewaker will keep spitting out damage every time he casts a spell. And on a mage, you gotta imagine they've got spells. This will make the curve awkward because I won't be able to play Hobgoblin next turn. You really don't want to play your Hobgoblin unless you can play stuff that it's going to buff afterwards. But I think getting the Flamewaker off the board is worth it. So we're going to go ahead and Blessing of Kings, the Haunted Creeper, and kill the Flamewaker. Now he's at least going to have to use a spell to get rid of it. Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, use an Unstable Portal instead of pinging our last spider. Now, it's debatable here whether or not Hobgoblin is the right play. Getting a 2-3 and a 3-3 with Divine Shield seems like a pretty good deal. But one Frostbolt will put an end to this Hobgoblin, and then I won't have it to buff the rest of this stuff. The other plays are True Silver Champion, which wasting 4 damage on a Mad Scientist that's already taken 1 damage seems foolish. Jeeves won't be able to draw us any cards this turn. Even the Master Swordsmith, he would probably just buff the spider by 1 at the end of the turn. I would only really get value out of the Swordsmith if I cast him and another Silverhand recruit. No, I think the strong play here is Hobgoblin, Argent Squire. Hope he doesn't have a way to deal with my Hobgoblin. And hopefully that secret doesn't vaporize. Doubtful. I've seen very few mages running Vaporize. Oh, wow. Hobgoblin eats a fireball. And he gives up. Wow. I guess he knew that wasting a fireball on a Hobgoblin was as terrible as I did. Ooh, mirror match. This could be tough.
I will fight with honor. Justice demands retribution.
We don't have a Hobgoblin in our opening hand, which is typically bad for this deck, but we do have a Knife Juggler. And I think that could help us hold on until we do get our Hobgoblin or a Sword of Justice. Yeah, I don't think this opening hand is terrible. So we'll keep it. Since we have quite a bit of early game, I'm going to hold off on playing the Squire. He probably won't have a 1-drop either. If he does, the Haunted Creeper will more than likely take care of it. Oh, he's going to coin out a shielded minibot, isn't he? Oh, okay, a Knife Juggler. That is problematic, but I don't think it's worth wasting an Owl. I think we play the Haunted Creeper, that way even if he gets some knives off, the best he can do is kill this Creeper and leave behind 2 spiders, which will then kill the Juggler. We can even get extra value by playing the Juggler before we pop the Haunted Creeper. Oh, please leave that Haunted Creeper up, man. He's buffing. Wow. Okay, so this seems to be an aggro Paladin. I guess technically our deck is aggro too, but it's really not built around just going face all the time. So our best hope here is to suicide the Haunted Creeper into the Knife Juggler. Hopefully when the 2 Spectral Spiders get summoned, 1 knife hits the Juggler, 1 knife hits the Squire. It's a little optimistic, but it's our best chance to win. Alright. That's less than ideal. Okay, I think we're going to drop the Argent Squire in the hopes that 1 extra knife will kill his Knife Juggler.
Move quickly.
Please, please, please. Crap. Now we wasted an Argent Squire. Well, with his Juggler buffed all the way up to 6, I imagine he's probably going to hit face again because he knows I'm going to want to trade at least one of these into his Juggler. Yep. But since he left my Juggler standing, we can have a pretty good muster for battle turn here. It's nice to finally draw the Hobgoblin, but we don't have anything he can buff. Hobgoblin does not buff the tokens that are summoned from Muster for Battle, just FYI. But it'll give us 3 knives, and even if they all miss the Juggler, I can use Light's Justice to take it out. Oh, come on. 1 knife. Ah! All 3 knives went face. That sucks. Alright, well, we gotta kill this Juggler. Even though it means an extra 6 damage to our face. I kind of want to take out the shielded mini-bot. And you know what? Since I have another Knife Juggler to replace him, I think I will. I got all the value out of that Juggler I think I'm going to get. Mini-bot would have killed him anyway. Hopefully he doesn't have a Consecrate.
Put this apple on your head.
But he has another Juggler. That sucks. Why does he get all the lucky knives? Come on! Ooh. This might be good. Alright, I can Knife Juggler, summon the Hobgoblin for 1 knife, and then the Wisp for a 2nd. That seems very optimistic. Or I can summon the Knife Juggler and just the Owl, bypass the Annoyotron, and kill the Juggler. But that way I float 1 mana. Alright, I think we gotta take the risk here. We're gonna go ahead and kill the Divine Shield on Annoyotron. And really hope we get some good juggles here. That's alright. We're gonna buff our Wisp. Come on, Knife. Excellent. That could not have gone better. Oh, I missed out on 1 damage. Couldn't click fast enough.
Get in there and fight, maggot.
Doesn't have enough for a quality Consecrate. Okay, Abusive Sergeant. That's a pretty crap play. Oh. Well, he couldn't equality Consecrate, but he still consecrated. Fortunately, it left our Hobgoblin alive so it can buff the Acolyte of Pain. We're going to go ahead and kill this Abusive Sergeant. Summon another Silverhand Recruit. We're in pretty bad shape at 7 health against his 20, but he only has 2 cards left, so hopefully he won't be able to kill us anytime soon. If we can keep buffing minions with the Hobgoblin, we might be able to overwhelm him. Oh, he has Blessing of Kings. That sucks. Oh well. So I guess I'm gonna have to use the Owl to silence that. That way he'll only do 1 damage to me when I hit it with my face. We'll summon another Silverhand Recruit. And keep attacking. Yeah, we cannot give him a chance to reestablish board control. He's already used 1 Consecrate. Has he used both? I might be confusing 2 games. But yeah, another Consecrate is seriously bad news for us. Okay. That's not too problem. Ooh, wow. What a draw. I think the Stormwind Champion might actually make this lethal. So we'll send the Silverhand Recruit to kill the taunt. And then everything else goes to base. Alright! Looks like we win this one. Token Paladin for the win in the mirror match. An actual victory this time. Oh. We got a Golden Lights Justice. Amazing.